In this video, we're going to talk about Galaxy S23 Ultra vs iPhone 14 Pro camera comparison. So before starting this video, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for the future updates. With its superior telephoto capabilities and an interesting 200-megapixel main camera, I wanted Samsung's Galaxy S23 Ultra to teach Apple a lesson in how a flagship phone should handle digital photography. Not because I want Apple to lose, but because I want competition to improve everybody's smartphone photography. But even though the S23 Ultra camera specs look better than the iPhone 14 Pros in many ways, I'm not going to declare it the better option for photographers. Apple and Samsung have capable wide-angle main cameras. No matter your phone, chances are good that you'll spend most of your time using the main wide-angle camera, the best one for photographing nearby people. These are the cameras with the best sensors and optics, for good reason, and Samsung and Apple didn't skimp on the hardware. Both phones' cameras can capture abundant detail, and with today's computational photography technology, a reasonable range of bright and dark tones. Under ordinary circumstances, neither phone is head and shoulders above the other. I prefer the iPhone, though. Frankly, both companies are guilty of overprocessing, but Apple less so. Samsung's instinct is to crank up the saturation so colors are super rich and skies look unnaturally blue and grass unnaturally green. Samsung often made the clouds of overcast skies too gloomy and gray. The Galaxy phone sharpens edges so tree leaves, blades of grass, and other areas with lots of detail are a crispy, jittery mess. I like the S23 Ultra's ability to take 50-megapixel photos, not just the 12-megapixel default. Apple shoots only 12-megapixel shots that are easier on your iPhone and iCloud storage limits, but that don't offer as much detail. The S23 Ultra has a significantly wider field of view, which is nice for indoor photos and some landscapes. However, I prefer Apple's field of view. Both phones have ultra-wide cameras after all. In this courtyard photo, it's nice to have a wide field of view, but Apple offered a more realistic rendering of the scene. Low light. The edge goes to Samsung. When the going gets dark, though, I preferred Samsung's computational photography skills. The Apple shots suffered more from muddiness in dark areas, and Samsung generally did better preserving details and boosting shadows that might have been lost to shaky hands. Note the sharper stenciled text and brighter shadows in the Samsung photo below. Night house. Both phones failed at the challenging task of shooting at night toward a bright streetlight, with enormous multicolored lens flare artifacts distracting from anything in the photo. Sadly, this is the state of the art for smartphone photography these days, and not just with these two manufacturers. Telephoto shots. Samsung is way better, obviously. Not everyone ventures far beyond the main camera, but in my mind, giving people more photographic freedom is important. It's the main reason these flagship phones cost so much more. And I just love the Samsung's S23 Ultra's 3x and 10x telephoto cameras. Telephoto shots can tightly frame distant objects, spotlighting details and perspectives that can be more surprising and engaging. I took dozens of photos to compare the iPhone 14 Pro's shots upscaled to 10x with the Galaxy S23 Ultra's native 10x shots. Of course, there's no comparison. The Galaxy S23 Ultra's native 10x telephoto camera produced a far better shot than the iPhone 14 Pro's digital upscaling from its 3x camera. This shows cropped versions. Given how hard Apple promotes its products as creative tools, the lack of a big telephoto camera on iPhones is embarrassing at this point. Samsung, like Google and other rivals, gets the long reach with a periscope lens approach that uses a prism to angle light 90 degrees inside the phone body. That sideways bend accommodates the otherwise impractically long telephoto optics. It's a smart approach and one Apple should mimic. I use the Samsung at 10x a lot and less commonly with its digital upscaling technology at 30x and 100x. The 30x shots can be useful when viewed small and can help with jobs like identifying birds. 100x is mostly a novelty unless you're limiting your photos to postage stamp size. S23 Ultra's 200-megapixel photos are a gimmick. One of the S23 Ultra's headline features is a 200-megapixel mode. Sadly, as implemented, I see it as less than useful. Through an image sensor technology called pixel binning, Samsung assigns each 4x4 group of pixels to capture a single color in, effectively, one larger and more sensitive pixel. The approach works well when taking low-light photos at 12.5 megapixels. But that doesn't capture as much detail when shooting at 50 megapixels or 200 megapixels, which requires the phone to extrapolate color information. Indeed, at 200 megapixels, the sensor uses AI technology to try to reconstruct the color data. That, combined with sharpness limits of tiny lenses, means that 200 megapixel photos really didn't seem to be any better. In one test, I couldn't tell much difference between a 200 megapixel shot and a 50 megapixel shot blown up to 200 megapixels in Photoshop. For selfies, it was a close matchup. I prefer the iPhone for its more realistic rendering of colors and details like hair and beards. Both phones struggled with my shadowed face in the example below, but the Samsung turned the sky a weird flat gray. When shooting portrait mode selfies, where artificial bokeh blurs the background thanks to computational photography, neither selfie camera handled flyaway hair well, but I thought Apple's iPhone did better overall. Ultra-wide. Apple wins on sharpness. I give the edge to Apple here for its more natural rendering of colors and for considerably better sharpness for the periphery of the frame, but mostly the cameras are a close match. As usual, the Galaxy S23 Ultra made the skies too blue and the grass too green, though, and both phones struggled with extreme lens flare shooting toward the sun. The ultra-wide lens is also used for macro shots. I'm glad macro photography has arrived on smartphones, but on both cameras, image quality degrades significantly beyond the central portion of the photo, so don't get your hopes up. I thought Samsung kept its sharpness better across the frame though, as in the birthday pie photo below. Both cameras overprocessed the fine structure of the flower below, but the Samsung went further overboard. What do you think of our video? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoy this video and want to hear from me again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go. Thanks for watching.